I'm Ann Campbell from the Groton Public Library. I'm thrilled to have everybody here. Thank you for your patience. I really appreciate it. Looks like we're signed on here. We are recording this program so that we will be able to record it for future use, use it for future use on our YouTube channel. And Shawn is our presenter today from UCONN. Do you want to do your introduction, Shawn? Because I'm a little flustered here.
It's all right. Yeah, I can totally do it. It's understandable too, because I think you're probably without the information in front of you now.
Yeah.
But hi, everybody. My name is Shawn Lada. I'm a second-year UCONN graduate student in the dietetic program. It'll technically be a master's in health promotion is the program that I'm in. To give you a little bit of a background on me, I first started my culinary arts career in high school. Actually, I went to a trade school called E.C. Goodwin in New Britain. I took all 4 years there as culinary. I moved on to Johnson & Wales University in Rhode Island, where I graduated with a bachelor's in science with a degree actually in culinary nutrition with a concentration in food science. I also worked in hospital settings as a dietary host and as a registered dietetic technician, which is kind of like the step down below dietitian. I also, I don't know if anybody has ever gone to J. Timothy's in Plainville before, but I worked there for 3 years as a line cook and traveled actually between Rhode Island and Plainville to work on the weekends there, and then spent all my summers working there. I've also worked with individuals with intellectual disabilities. I was a administrator assistant for the dietetic department for 3 years in a group home setting. And like I said, I'm currently enrolled in at UCONN. And we're also I'm also one of the co-managers for two social media accounts on Instagram and Facebook. If any of you are interested, we have more videos and health fact-based information there. The group names are Healthy Family CT. I can post them in the chat if anybody is interested in more information, or if you were curious to more health information, maybe a question that goes unanswered tonight. We always have somebody who's at least monitoring those social media sites, so we can always answer your questions there. But enough about me. So I figured we would do that introduction there. And then we can move on to, I have the video for the cooking demo prepared. It's about 45 minutes long, but it is a 3-course meal. And then we can always provide any additional information if anybody would like later on. And then feel free during the video to post your questions in the chat. I can always answer them. I do know that there are some dead air spots in the video. So that'd be perfect timing to answer. I do apologize. There's no like actual audio of me like slicing anything. I'm sure many people can relate. My kitchen gets fairly noisy, so it's not the most ideal place to do a live session. So that's why we didn't do that here. Okay. Let me share my screen and then I'll play the video. Hi everybody, the first dish we're going to be making tonight are our tuna cakes with coleslaw and the aioli. The first couple of things we'll need are about 2 eggs, a bell pepper, red onion, our canned tuna, breadcrumbs, and black pepper and garlic powder. You're going to want a small bowl to crack your eggs into and a large bowl for all of the ingredients to get mixed in. I first start by cracking each egg into the small dish just to make sure that there are no eggshells getting into the cakes overall. After that's done, just put the eggs to the side. Next up, I cut up my bell pepper, but I make sure first to wash it under cold water. For this, I chop off the top and bottom of the bell pepper, followed by putting the knife through one of the ribs and cutting straight through the pepper. This will help us lay it out with minimizing the mess from all of the seeds. Roll the pepper while cutting away at each rib and you'll have product that you can just dice right away. Throw away your seed pod and the stem from the pepper, but make sure to keep the top and the bottom of the pepper, as well as obviously the rest of the flesh. Next, I cut the pepper into strips and then dice from there. You're going to want to do a fairly small dice. Dicing the peppers too large means that your cakes are going to likely fall apart far too easily. Place all of your diced peppers straight into your mixing bowl. I only used about half of the bell pepper, so it's perfectly fine to put about half of it to the side like you see up in the corner of the cutting board. At this point, I took the time to take the remaining pepper, put it in a small bag, and put it in the fridge. The next ingredient that you're going to want to prepare is your red onion. For this, I chopped off both ends, and then sliced the onion down the center. I removed the peel. I usually take the first outer layer off as well as the peel to make it super simple and not have to worry about messing around with the onion for too long. Throw away your onion scraps when you're ready, and then we're going to prepare dicing our onion. The same as with the pepper, you're going to want to make sure that your dices are not too big, or else your cakes are going to fall apart. Since this is a fairly small onion, I just make 3 incisions without cutting all the way through the onion, and then I go the opposite direction, making multiple incisions. Again, don't go all the way through. You'll see why in just a second. Start cutting through the onion to make your diced pieces, just like so. Wait to the very end to remove the core and give any remnants a final little dice. I only used half the onion here as well. Throw in your diced onion into the mixing bowl and put in the other half into a bag and into your refrigerator for another dish. Next, take your cans of tuna, crab, salmon, whatever you chose, drain them out over your sink, and bring them back in order to empty out into your bowl. For this recipe, I was able to use 2 cans. You may need to use a fork, a spoon, or some sort of utensil in order to get the compacted meat out of the can. I think this might be some dead air here, so just to clarify like what's happened, right? So we've basically just prepped all the ingredients for tuna cakes. It's going to be prepared with a lemon black pepper aioli and a vinegar-based coleslaw. So everything is pretty much just going into the bowl. The eggs were just separate, and then once you've added in your cans, next you're going to want to add in your eggs. So the eggs were cracked into a separate dish so that we could check for eggshells before they were added. After you've added in your 2 eggs, you're going to want to grab your breadcrumbs and get them ready to pour into a measuring cup. I used a 1 cup measuring cup and filled it to the rim full of breadcrumbs and just poured it straight into our mixing bowl. After that, I added 1 whole tablespoon of garlic powder, followed by 1 teaspoon of black pepper. Next, you can take a fork or wash your hands for 20 seconds using soap and water and just mix together all the ingredients for the cakes. You're going to want to make sure that you're mixing thoroughly enough so that everything is well incorporated. If you have a rubber spatula, this is definitely going to make the process a lot quicker. I'm just using a fork because I know not everybody owns rubber spatulas. Once you're done mixing and the mixture can form together without falling apart, you're going to want to just put the mix to the side. Next, grab another large mixing bowl and grab your head of cabbage. Here we're going to be making our coleslaw. Since the head of cabbage was so big, I only ended up cutting off about 1/4 of it. Oh, and again, make sure you rinse off your cabbage before you start working with it. This will help get rid of any dirt that might be on it. I then just shredded it using a knife. You could alternatively use a box grater and to shred the cabbage, but here I just used a knife to make very thin strands and then cut them again to make them into more bite-sized pieces if needed. Then place your sliced cabbage into your mixing bowl. For the remaining ingredients for the coleslaw, I use celery salt, though I usually recommend celery seed, some honey mustard, a carrot, and some apple cider vinegar. I first started off by scrubbing and washing off the carrot. Scrubbing it well enough will help avoid needing to peel it. Be sure to chop off the top and bottom of the carrot just a little bit. You don't have to go too far with it. And then I grated about 3/4 of it using the box grater. You can alternatively use a vegetable peeler to shave the carrot, or if that's going to take far too long, you can make smaller pieces by cutting it with your knife. Just be very careful with a box grater. I know from experience that sometimes you forget where your hand is, and that can lead to needing a bandage or two. Add your shaved or cut carrots to the cabbage mixture in the bowl. Next up, add in about 1/4 cup of that apple cider vinegar into the mixing bowl. And following, put in about 1/2 teaspoon of your celery seed or celery salt into the entire bowl. After that, add in about 2 to 3 tablespoons of your honey mustard. You can also make it a little more flavorful if you want to add in a 4th tablespoon. It's really not going to add that much calories depending on the brand that you're using. Just give all of that a good stir and then set it to the side so that all of the flavors can meld together and the cabbage will soften and pickle. You can alternatively cover this and leave it in the fridge, have it as leftovers, do whatever you want with it. Just make sure that you make it a little early on so that if you are making it for the same meal, it'll be ready by the time that your cakes are done. After that's done, you'll want to grab a smaller mixing bowl, this time to make our aioli. For the aioli, you'll need 1 lemon, some mayonnaise, and some black pepper. That's it. I cut the lemon in half and saved the other half in a plastic baggie in the fridge for, yet again, either another meal or put it in your tea or whatever you want. For the mayo, I scoop out about 1 whole cup. Place the entire cup of mayo into the small mixing bowl, and then you'll add in 1 whole teaspoon of black pepper. Following that, you'll take all of the juice from the lemon, holding your hand underneath so that you catch any of the seeds from dropping into the aioli. For added lemon flavor, I also give very shallow cuts against the rind of the lemon. This is to avoid getting too much of that yellow part from the skin and just getting all of that yellow outside part, which is going to add a ton of flavor. For the zest, you can either use a vegetable peeler or you can just simply use your knife. Cut as close as possible without getting very much of that yellow part from the lemon. And then those little pieces you're just going to mince really fine. It's going to add such a burst of flavor when you add it into the aioli. Once you're done finely mincing the lemon zest, just add it straight to the bowl. You can add all of it, or you can add about a teaspoon's worth. It's totally up to you. If you like more lemon flavor, I would recommend adding all of it. If you don't like more lemon flavor, I would just stick with the 1 teaspoon. I just end up saving my zest for a later dish. And then once you have all of your ingredients in your small bowl, mix it all together until it's well incorporated. Cover it with saran wrap and put it in the fridge. Leave it to set to the side. You're gonna want it a little cool before you serve it. You obviously don't want to leave your mayonnaise sitting at room temperature. And now we're ready to cook our cakes. In a large pan, you're going to want to add some olive oil over medium-high heat. Let that oil get hot, and while that's happening, simply just take your cake mixture and pack it tightly between your palms until you have roughly about 1 inch thick patties. Mine came out to be about 3 inches in diameter. Swirl the oil in the pan so that it coats the entire bottom. The reason why mine doesn't really stay in one place is because I'm using a non-stick pan. Once you press your cakes together, this is roughly what they should look like. Form each one and gently place them into your pan. Throwing them in too hard could make them fall apart. If you do notice them falling apart a little bit while they cook, this is perfectly fine. So long as they formed in the first place, they should hold their shape throughout the entire cooking process. Just be a little careful when you flip them, as again, hitting them too hard might cause them to crumble. I should also mention they're going to roughly take 3 to 5 minutes to cook on each side, or until they're roughly golden brown. It'll take about 3 to 5 minutes for that to happen.
And Shawn, the audio was off in the beginning, so you can use tuna or chicken or salmon or just about any kind of canned meat that you have. Is that?
Yep, and it doesn't even have to be canned either. If you have something that you're trying to use up for like leftovers that's shredded, you could absolutely do that as well. Like let's say if you had like an old rotisserie chicken or something like that that you just wanted to like shred with 2 forks, you could absolutely do that. The canned version is just obviously the easier way out. Again, flip them gently. You might want to use your other hand or another utensil to help this happen. And let them cook for another 3 to 5 minutes on the other side. After they're done cooking, it's time to plate. What I did was I put down a bed of that coleslaw we made earlier, and then topped it with one crab cake, laid another crab cake against that, and then put a large dollop of our aioli right on top. You can garnish it with some cilantro if you want, or some parsley, or you can skip the garnish entirely. It really doesn't matter. And there it is. Enjoy your cakes. You can obviously enjoy this as an entire meal on its own, or reduce the portion to about one cake and have it as an appetizer. Overall, all of this food added together is going to cost you around $5 to make all of the servings. I was able to make 4 of these plates, meaning each of these cost $1.25 per serving. Our next dish that we'll be making is called picadillo, and we are making the Cuban variation. To make it, you'll need ground meat of your choice, pepper, onion, some apple cider vinegar, some olives, and diced tomatoes, along with some rice. The first thing you're actually going to want to do is start your rice. I have a rice cooker here, but if you just have a pot, you're going to want to have the lid for it, and you're going to add in 2 cups of rice. And then since this is brown rice, you're going to need 2 cups of water for every 1 cup, so we need 4 cups of water in total. After you're done adding your water, you're going to want to put it over heat. For the rice cooker, you're just going to want to start cooking it. Or if you're using a pot, you're going to want to turn it on to high heat first, allow it to come to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, you're going to reduce the heat to low, and then you're going to put the lid onto it and allow it to cook until it looks like there's little crabs trying to breathe out of the sand. For the actual picadillo component, we are going to first start off by dicing up our bell pepper. I do the same thing as we did with the crab cakes. Chop off the top and then the bottom, split from the ribs, and then make sure that you gently roll the pepper, keep the seed cage intact, throw it away along with the stem. Next, cut the pepper into large segments. This will make dicing it a bit easier, and then cut into about a medium dice size. Since this is more of like a stew dish, we don't really have to worry about our cuts being too small or too large, as nothing's really going to fall apart. But still, making sure our peppers are at least bite-sized will make the dish much easier to eat. And just to mention really quickly, if you've got picky eaters or anything like that, you can use whatever rice is easier for you. All the vegetables in the dish will provide a lot more fiber, which is part of the point why we recommend brown rice over white rice, typically.
But with the brown rice, you use more water to cook it, is that right?
Typically, I swear, once you're done dicing your peppers, place them into a bowl on the side. There's like 100 different variations of rice, and they all might have different water to rice ratios. So just follow the directions on the back of the package that you get it in. For our next addition to this dish, I'm using a large yellow onion. With the same steps as before, cut off the top, the bottom, cut straight through the middle, and then peel around the outer layer. I cut this onion a little too shallow, so I had to give it a little trim for the top of it. Take this moment to clear your trimmings, either by throwing them away or composting them. Next, give about a medium dice to your onion. To do this, we can do a similar trick as what we did before with the cakes, where we just make a couple incisions in a couple different directions before we start slicing through our onion to get that dice. Just like with the pepper for the picadillo, I used the entire onion as well. Once that's all diced up, you'll want to put your onions into the bowl alongside your peppers as well, or you can use an entirely different bowl if you don't have a bowl big enough to hold both of them. I also take the core out from each of the onions and throw them away or compost them. You can also save your scraps from your onion, like your core that we're mentioning here, or even your wrappings and whatnot, make your own like stalks with them too.
So Shawn, do these meals freeze well? So if you want to like double the recipe and then put some in the freezer?
Oh yeah, absolutely. These easily freeze. The exception might be the coleslaw, obviously, because that one's a little more of a non-cooked item. This next part, I sped it up quite a bit, as I had to individually de-pit every individual olive. I would assume most people bought pitted olives, so you didn't have to worry about this part, but just so you can kind of see the process of literally de-pitting every single small olive. Otherwise, if you were smarter than me and you were actually able to find olives in the grocery store, you're just going to want to drain them out and get about a quarter cup of them and slice them in any way that you want. Once you're done slicing your olives, you can put the small dish filled with them to the side. And lastly, I opened up my can of diced tomatoes. For this one, I had about a 22 to 24 ounce can. And once you've opened it, you'll just want to drain out the juice from it and put the entire can to the side. You will be using all of it. And now it's finally time to cook. In a large pan, similar to the one you used for the cakes, add in your olive oil to begin, and let that heat up. Swirl your pan in order to get all of the olive oil coated on the bottom of the pan. And now that your oil is finally heated, add in your entire package of 1 pound of ground beef, or pork like I used, chicken, etc. It really doesn't matter what meat you're using. Using a utensil of some sort, just break up the ground meat until it's crumbly, and then allow it to cook until it's browned. So again, it's yet another dish where you can pretty much use whatever works best for you or whatever you have like laying around. You could even throw in like leftover meat towards the end of the dish instead of cooking the meat first. Once the meat is about halfway done cooking, push it to one side of the pan and leave a little bit of a gap for your spices. What we're going to do here is what we call blooming spices. It allows the flavor and aroma to come out a lot more and actually adds a bigger impact of flavor. You'll put in about 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. If you like it even spicier, add in a 1/2 teaspoon. You'll also add in about 1/2 to 1 whole teaspoon of paprika. And for our last spice, we'll add in 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. Let those spices sit in the pan for about 30 seconds and then stir. Make sure that you don't leave them in too long, otherwise they may burn. Stir your bloomed spices into the meat and cook the mixture until the meat is just about done. It's also really not a spicy dish either, even with the 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper.
And the purpose of blooming it on the side, I've never done that. That's just to, does it mix better, or?
It actually gets the aroma and the flavor to come out a lot more.
Okay.
Once the meat is about 3/4 of the way done, or roughly almost all done, add in your onions and peppers. Saute the onions and peppers in the pan for about 5 to 7 minutes. You'll want them to still be a little bit crunchy, but not completely raw.
Yeah, a lot of recipes I've done, I've browned the vegetables first. Is that, they stay fresher if you add them after?
Yeah, they'll also have more of a bite to them as well, so you'll get a little bit more of a textural mouthfeel out of doing this. Yeah, but most often, yeah, especially like the onions, most recipes tell you to like sweat or saute them before you do any, like add in anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But since this recipe is really quick, we go with the item that takes the longest, which happens to be the meat in this case.
Well, I think the crunchier vegetables, the better, right?
Some people like more texture to their food. Some people would rather have them softer. It's all preference. After you've let your onions and peppers saute, add in your entire can of crushed or diced tomatoes. Follow that up with about a 1/2 tablespoon of your apple cider vinegar. Then you're going to want to add in your olives, and then you're just going to want to give everything a stir until it's fully incorporated. Cook it no more than an added 5 to 6 minutes so that those olives and tomatoes can get nice and hot. Once that's done, remove it from the heat and get ready to serve it. Your rice should be done at this point as well. Yeah, so if you're using minute rice or anything like that, you would obviously save it for the end because it cooks a lot quicker than cooking it from dry.
not gonna lie, I'm kind of salivating over here.
Well, that's good. That means I actually did an okay job with the dishes, I guess.
Oh yeah. Oh, looks delicious. And easy. I'm not a cook, but
Yeah, that's part of the whole reason for these recipes is like they're super quick. The most amount of time you're going to spend on anything is just cutting things up, pretty much.
perfect. Now on the website, does it give suggestions for menu planning? And that Healthy Family CT has got some awesome resources on it.
We do have like a lot of recipes. I can't remember if I've seen like menu planning, but we definitely do have tips for like, you know, menu planning before you go to the grocery store, things like that. So like I said, I would have to take a double check just to see. There's so much information on there, I honestly can't even remember if we have anything on it, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's amazing. Take advantage of the Connecticut Extension Service.
For plating, I took a measuring cup and packed it tightly with the rice, which gave me the shape here. It's about a half cup of rice. You don't have to do this, it's just for presentation. You can lay out the rice however you want. Next, I take the picadillo and I nestle it right up against the mound, and then I put another scoop right on the top of it as well. The sauce that you see on the plate forming is literally just from the vegetables itself, the spices, and the vinegar. As a chef, I fought with putting a garnish on top of it before deciding that it wasn't really needed. It really didn't make the dish look well, especially when you were trying to take a picture of it. And that's our picadillo. For this recipe here, each serving would cost us maybe around $1 each as well, if not less than that. For our last dish, this is literally all we're gonna need. A banana, some cinnamon, and butter. It really doesn't matter the type of cinnamon, I just happen to have Saigon on me. Oh, and of course, some olive oil as well. Your first step here is going to be to cut your banana after you, of course, peel it. You're going to want to cut into about 1/2 inch thick wheels. I cut mine on a bias. Again, this is more over for presentation's sake. After you have your banana all cut up, you're just going to very, very lightly sprinkle cinnamon over each piece, flip over each piece, sprinkle them again.
Don't often think of bananas and cinnamon together.
This recipe tastes like hot banana pancakes without like the. Once all of your banana pieces are seasoned, in a small saute pan this time, we are going to heat our butter over medium-low heat. Be careful not to let your butter sit for too long, as butter solids burn very easily in the pan. To kind of avoid this from happening, I added in some olive oil to make what we call fortified butter. That's because the oil actually has a higher smoking point, which means that the mixture itself will take a bit longer to burn. once the fortified butter heats up, you're going to want to add in each of your banana slices. This is a really quick dessert dish, so you're only really going to want to be cooking these banana pieces for about 1 to 2 minutes on each side. Any longer than that and you'll either burn the butter solids or the natural sugars contained in the banana itself. You could absolutely pair this with ice cream or like yogurt as well, for like a dessert parfait. And I should have clarified with the fortified butter, what I meant to kind of say in the video is it's going to take a higher temperature for the butter solids to burn, so the pan does gradually get hotter, and that's why things do end up burning, or oils rather start burning. As you can see here, I kind of let my bananas go a little too long. Try to avoid that at this point. Have them flipped for sure. I was just moreover worried about having my banana nicely browned on the bottom. To get a more well-defined browning on your bananas, you could always actually turn up your heat a little bit. And while this may seem bad, it's actually not as bad as it looks on video. The lighting actually ruined how they came out overall. Remove them from the heat and enjoy. I only used 1 banana for this, so it only gave me about 2 servings, meaning it cost me about 10 to 15 cents for this dessert. And this is how they came out. And that's it. I've actually fooled a lot of people into thinking that those bananas were scallops. I guarantee you they do not taste like scallops, but they, like I said, they taste almost like a, actually they pretty much taste exactly like a banana pancake. So that was pretty much it, although I guess I should kind of preface something here. We've been saying in a lot of our cooking videos and whatnot, before you start cooking, make sure that you're washing your hands, just like the CDC recommends, for 20 seconds at least. With soap and water. It doesn't really matter the temperature of the water these days, as they've kind of found out, but I know a lot of us are used to just using warm to hot water.
Well done. Well done. I can't wait to make the recipes. We originally had this planned for last month for National Nutrition Month, and my coworker Lindsay, who's here, had done a lot of videos to go along with that, which are all on our YouTube channel. Just some helpful hints on following a recipe and finding a recipe, and whether it's better to do it on Google or through a cookbook. But I like the in-person. This is my way to do it. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate everybody's patience for being here.
So Lindsay, I saw asked in the chat, where do you find ground pork in the grocery store? Looked for it not too long ago and was not successful. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that. I know meat has been kind of tough. I'm sure a lot of us remember like the beginning of this whole pandemic and like looking at the meat case and literally seeing it barren. Typically the meat case is where I find ground pork though. I think that one specifically was from Costco, and I know not everybody has access there, but you should be able to find like ground pork in your typical meat case and like Stop and Shop. Any place that has a butcher there, you should be able to ask them as well if they have any ground pork or if they can make you some. And usually they can use like pork that they already have on hand and just grind it up like they do with beef. Gotcha. Well, I'm glad to hear ground turkey worked fine. Yeah, that's the beauty of these recipes, is you can use Michelle, yeah, saying that local farms have them as well. That's a great point too. I actually have a farm right down the road from me that sells grass-fed beef, so it doesn't hurt to check your local farms as well, for sure. But yeah, the beauty of these dishes is you can use like so many different things as substitutions to them. So that's why in the recipes that I'll send out to, it'll say like you can use ground turkey, ground chicken, ground beef, etc., ground pork. So it'll entirely be up to you how you want to make it in the future. And I saw Eliza learn some new techniques today, which is awesome. I saw some other people had mentioned that they had learned how to cut a pepper a different way. And then the lemon too, kind of like a way to strain it through just using your hand. Did anybody else feel like they learned something new today?
I learned a lot, so I thank you.
I'm glad. Yeah, that's definitely part of the cooking demos as well. You know, like when you see a chef do it at, like, if anybody here has ever been to like the Big E or anything like that and seen a cooking demo done there, they usually might teach you a thing or two. So that's a great part, again, like you said, Anne, of in person. You know, even though this was pseudo in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. The beauty of those demos. You learned that mixing fresh and canned is economical. It's definitely economical. That can of tomatoes, I think, cost me like 60 cents in the grocery store for like 22 ounces. And you can't even get like a pound of tomatoes for that price, which I'm sure, well, that's already 22 ounces is more than a pound already. So for like 80 cents, there's not really much that you can beat. And two, if you're watching your soda, I don't know if anybody noticed this in the video, I didn't add any salt to any of the dishes. I guarantee you the spices alone will provide enough flavor. You can always add a little bit. There's nothing wrong with adding a little bit of salt to your food unless you really have to watch it. And in terms of like using canned goods, if you're worried about the sodium content in like canned beans or anything like that, research has kind of shown us that if you simply rinse the beans off in a colander under cold running water, you'll remove up to about 40% of the sodium. So, and then of course, frozen is also another economical way that you can do things. You don't always have to use fresh ingredients to be healthy.
Yeah, I know what I'm cooking this weekend. You made it look so easy and delicious. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Shawn, for your time and being patient. And unless anybody else has anything to say, thanks, Michelle. Okay.
All right, take care, everybody. Thanks for coming.
All right. Thanks, Shawn. Thank you. Thank you again. Take care.
You too.